Hey, gang, welcome into another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope you guys all had a great weekend. I know I did. It is strange getting used to no hockey, no basketball, no football. That I'm still not, it's been a couple weeks, but you train your brain to think, okay, well, there's a game coming up or there's something to look forward to. And I have been getting into way more baseball than I have the last couple months, obviously, with the Stanley Cup playoffs consuming so much of my time. And obviously, this creates more time for UFC, which I love to watch, and I get to watch that Saturday nights, and even make time for CFL, which had its interesting moments over the weekend with some injuries and a really entertaining game. And Zach Calero's playing maybe the best game of his career, and he's had a few good games throughout his career. But you still look and say, "Wow, there's no hockey tonight, there's no basketball, and we're still about a couple weeks away from NFL training camp." And I'm very thankful for baseball. I'm very thankful for UFC. I'm thankful for some of the sports, the Wimbledon finals this weekend both were entertaining in different ways. I'm very thankful for sports. This week's going to be fun because we got free agency on Wednesday, lots of rumors, some really interesting baseball heading into the All-Star game next week. So entertainment there. We got the British Open, the last major of the season, starts Thursday. So good stuff there. What I'm worried about is next week. Monday, there's no sports. Nothing. And then Tuesday, there's the All-Star game in baseball. And I'm just going to put this out a week in advance, and I'll reiterate this throughout the week. I appreciate everybody that listens to me. I appreciate every one of you listeners that join me daily, and we chalk it up about sports. But if you're expecting analysis of the home run derby or the All-Star game, you got the wrong podcast. Ben Verlander has a really good one. It's called Flippin' Bats. I'm sure he'll discuss it. You can see Tim Kirchin on ESPN. I highly recommend him. He's one of the most knowledgeable people in all of baseball. But if you're looking for me to talk about All-Star games, to talk about the home run derby, it's just not my avenue. I'm not going to be watching either of those. I promise you. There's no sports on TV. That's a break for me. What I find myself doing now is every Sunday night I watch a movie. And it coincided with Sunday Night Baseball last night. So that was another really entertaining game between the Yankees and Red Sox. And I normally hate to see those two teams always on Sunday Night Baseball, but it was a good game, so I can't complain that much. But that's kind of I think what I'll do now on Mondays is I'll talk about the movie I watched on Sunday nights. I normally go on Crave. It's my go-to, some really good shows. I was reluctant to pay for Crave forever because I pay for Netflix and I pay for all my streaming services for sports, and shit adds up, as you all know. I mean, I'm not saying something you guys don't know. If you guys get streaming services, you got to watch stuff. And, of course, you complain about the bill, but you're going to pay for it because what are you going to do at night? Watch cable? Fat chance, unless you're watching sports. So Crave is great. 2 weeks ago, I watched The Last Duel. It's with Matt Damon, Adam Driver, who I like a lot. Although I think I like him, but again, he's kind of a creepy little actor. Adam Driver, Matt Damon, and Ben Affleck. Fantastic movie. The actress who is actually in Killing Eve was the best actor on the entire show. It's an interesting story because it's based on true events, and you see it from the point of view of Matt Damon and Adam Driver, and then the female lead. So you see three different stories, three different narratives through obviously three different people. I like that cinematography. I like that viewpoint. And like I said, she's such a great actress. She really made the movie to me. Ben Affleck's in the movie. I don't think he had to be. I think Matt Damon wanted him in there because they're good buddies. But I recommend that movie. Very good, The Last Duel. So that's my kind of Sunday routine. Is you throw on a movie. I like doing that. I recently started watching The Wire. I had never seen The Wire. I've been recommended. I've been told to watch it forever. And I'm about 4 episodes into The Wire. I'm watching it on Crave. I can't get enough of it. I'm already addicted. It's incredibly entertaining. The acting is superb in that show. And what I like about The Wire so far, again, I'm 4 episodes in. If you haven't seen the show, watch it with me because I'm really enjoying it, is the fact that every character is pretty unlikable. And I figured this out in all my time watching film, cinema, shows. Normally, the best shows have really unlikable characters. And I see movies get really bad reviews. See shows get really bad reviews from Rotten Tomatoes and other, critics. And we're not going to do the whole show on movies, I promise. We'll get off this. But that's something I've really uncovered over the last little while is you think about Breaking Bad, which to me is still the greatest show ever made. Walter White and Jesse Pinkman aren't exactly likable characters. Saul Goodman is not a likable character on that. Ozark, I just finished. Ruth Langmore, Marty Bird, Wendy Bird, they are not nice. They're not good, good people, if you will. Yet the show is one of the best shows I've seen. Seinfeld is, to me, the greatest sitcom of all time. It's not even close. I love The Office. It's not close. Jerry is such an unlikable person. George, who I see myself as a George often. I've gotten compared to him in the past. George is not, he's a terrible human being. And I'm compared to him. I take it as a compliment because I love the show. But you see where I'm going with this. There's unlikable people in the program. So that's just something I've uncovered watching television lately. The best shows through history, through the greatest shows, have really unlikable people. And I think you could say the same thing for real life. Was Michael Jackson a really great person? He's a better person now? But when you watch the movie Rocket Man, do you think Elton John was a really great person? Was Chris Farley but all these people were so great in their field. So I don't know what that tells me about what I'm doing. Maybe I need to be meaner. Maybe I need to be worse, and then I'll have more success. Maybe that's the key, because I don't know. My brain is always going in weird, different places. I got different thoughts all the time. And that was just something I've noticed over the weekend. That was an observation that I made, that normally in television and sometimes in life, the most successful, the most captivating, and often the most well-known people aren't exactly great people. Are there shows with really good people? I thought about that today. I thought about Shawshank Redemption, but Andy Dufresne's not a great person. He's in jail. Morgan Freeman's not a great person in that movie either. So again, you go through it, there's not many great characters. And often you watch a movie where every character is a really awesome person. It's a shit movie. It is, because it's garbage. It's no good. You end up going, wow. You kind of you end up feeling worse about yourself because of all the good people in the film. Maybe they're trying to make you feel better, but you walk out of the movie and go, I never want to see that piece of shit again. But there's my little 10 minutes to start this podcast of movies and just big picture thoughts from Noah today about film, cinema, and the characters inside of it. But seriously, give that a thought. Think about your favorite shows that you've ever watched and think, are these characters likable? Was my favorite TV show full of characters that I would want to be like? Do I aspire to be Wendy Bird if you're a female out there? Do you aspire to be Walter White if you're a middle-aged man? Maybe there's other shows I'm missing. Let me know. I'd love to hear this conversation, because this is just something that came into my head this weekend. Weird stuff, and that's normally what happens in my brain. It's a bunch of meaningless, worthless knowledge. But again, I like talking about it, so I'll tell all of you. Now let's get to sports. We're going to get to some hockey rumors today involving Evander Kane, Matt Murray, and some other news and notes from over the weekend. But let's start in Major League Baseball, where we saw two sweeps this weekend that were equally puzzling and equally crazy, if you ask me, where we saw the Seattle Mariners sweep the Toronto Blue Jays in Seattle with a couple really dramatic wins. And then the Baltimore Orioles swept the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim with a 4-game sweep. And now Baltimore has won 8 games in a row for the first time since 2005, if you can believe it, which I couldn't believe over the weekend, but it's true. And they now sit 2 games back of the Toronto Blue Jays for the final wild card spot in the American League. Now, this is a good story for Baltimore. Do I expect Baltimore to be here in 30 games? I don't. But kudos to the Baltimore Orioles for being competitive in July, because it's been since really 2016 since the Baltimore Orioles have been competitive in July, where you can actually say, holy crap, we can sniff the playoffs. Credit goes to Brandon Hyde, who, if you recall, about a month, maybe a month and change ago, Baltimore had a series in Toronto. And in game 1 of that series, they lost 16-3. And it was an embarrassing loss. It was demoralizing. And it could have gone south for Baltimore there. They could have it completely fell down the drain, which would have been accepted. They're not a great team. They don't get great pitching. But to me, Brandon Hyde has always spoke to me as a guy that doesn't give up as a manager. As a guy that, yes, he knows he's on a team that's not full of talent, but he's not going to let them sandbag it. He's not going to let them just mail it in. And in this circumstance, they lose that game. They end up getting a split in that series, which to me was a huge victory. Baltimore gets a split in Toronto. This is when Toronto was really riding high. And since then, they have the 5th best record in all of baseball. And, the teams have gone really in opposite directions. The Orioles have been surging, and the Toronto Blue Jays are cratering upon disaster. Since then, the Blue Jays lost Hyunjin Ryu for the season for Tommy John surgery. Yusei Kikuchi, who's been pitching terrible all season, is on the 15-day IL with a neck injury. And the bullpen in parts of the Blue Jays bullpen is struggling. And the major part about it is that they're overworked. Too many starters in this rotation cannot go 5 innings. And it's starting to eat at this bullpen. Now, for Blue Jays fans, I don't think it's panic time. You have a lot of season left. You have a lot of games to make up. You play here. You play a lot against Baltimore. That's one. And again, Baltimore's been surging. I expect them to come down from this. But it's not just hunky-dory. It's not, okay, well, we can, let's not worry about this. Let's just see how it goes tomorrow. That's not how the approach should be for the Blue Jays. And the main reason is it's not Baltimore that you're tied with in the American League wildcard. It's Seattle. And Seattle, to me, was a playoff team before the season started. I thought Seattle would be a playoff team in the American League over the Boston Red Sox, quite frankly. And although Seattle has not made the playoffs in the upteen seasons, they have a really solid roster. Julio Rodriguez is just a flat-out stud. The guy can do everything on the field. Yes, he screwed up running the bases over the weekend, which was funny, but he's incredibly athletic. I love the way he plays. J.P. Crawford as a solid leader on this team. You see, earlier in the season, they went and acquired Carlos Santana from the Kansas City Royals, the first baseman. And Carlos is a guy that is like a modern-day major leaguer. He's going to have a terrible average. He's going to strike out a ton, but he's got a lot of experience playing for good teams. He won a World Series with the Kansas City Royals back in the day, and he can hit home runs. And in a 4-game series, he hits 3 home runs this weekend, including 2 yesterday, and ultimately the one that won the game in the bottom of the 8th inning. So Seattle, with Robbie Ray, with Logan Gilbert, who is a great pitcher, they have some solid depth at pitching, and they got a good team. They do. I like the Mariners roster a lot. The Blue Jays, I mentioned the pitching, but to me, I look at their best players and say, could you hit when a guy's on base, could you drive him in? One thing about the Blue Jays and how they're built, and I look at it, it's very similar to the roster they had in 2015, 2016, where in those seasons, it was swing for the fences. It was, okay, we're going to hit a home run here. It was not about playing small ball. It wasn't about playing for the next at bat. To me, that team was too much one dimension where you had Bautista, you had Donaldson, Tulowitzki. Everybody was about hitting a home run. It was about, okay, we're going to drive them in, hitting a home run, and you'd strike out or hit into a double play more often than not. Kansas City was not overly talented. I don't think they're as talented as the Blue Jays, but Kansas City and Cleveland, who ended up beating Toronto in back-to-back seasons, were just smarter baseball players than the Toronto Blue Jays, had smarter organizations because they realized, okay, we can win doing the little things better than the Blue Jays because they refused to act on them. So as I look at things now for the Blue Jays, you got Springer, who's a great leadoff hitter. He is a smart guy. But Bichette, Vladdy Guerrero, the 2 through 4 slot, right now you have Vladdy, you have Bichette, Teoscar Hernandez. These guys are not players that are trying to drive people in. They're trying to hit the home run. They're trying to be the hero when, okay, could you hit a single? We move the base runner. We go first to third. We have speed on the bases. We can make life more difficult for the pitcher. Maybe we have a bigger inning. And right now, that's not happening. And to me, that's something that's so frustrating with the game of baseball. And it's something, to me, why attendance has decreased significantly and why viewership decreases year over year is there's no action in games. The only action is a home run. There's no stolen bases. There's no bunts. There's no singles. It's all homers or strikeouts. And quite frankly, strikeouts aren't that entertaining. They are when it's a 3-2 pitch and the bases are loaded and it means something. But when you have a guy on first base and you're seeing 2 straight guys strike out and a guy swings at an 85-mile-an-hour slider 18 feet out of the zone, who gives a crap anymore? Some of these teams that have uber talent, I get it. But you're not going to be hitting great for every stretch. The Blue Jays haven't. Let's be honest. Vladdy Guerrero Jr. is not having a great season. The team is not having a great season. They were World Series favorites over the Dodgers before the season. The Dodgers are comfortably in first place. You look at the Blue Jays, they are outside of the playoffs if it started today. The Mariners surpassed them over the weekend. They had a 4-game lead. It's now vanished as the Mariners have caught them. Something needs to change. You can add more pitching, which they need to do. Absolutely. That needs to be done because the only guys they trust right now are Kevin Gausman and Alek Manoah. And Manoah would be a game 1 starter in the playoffs. If you're in a wild card game, Manoah is getting that start. Saturday, he goes 7 1/3. He gives up 2 earned. And yes, he gives up a 2-run shot in the 8th, but he went 7 1/3 innings. You only score 1 run to help him. That's not enough. You can't expect your pitcher to go scoreless for the entire game. That's just not, you're not going to win many games doing that. They do it too often. Gausman is a good pitcher. They expect him back in his next start. But Barrios has pitched well against Oakland and against bad clubs. I have no trust in him yet. I need to see over a period of time him pitch extremely well. And to me, the call should be starting now. Yes, the All-Star game is next week, and this week can be a lull for some MLB teams. I'm curious to see how aggressive some of these teams are with acquiring pieces and getting them in, because why not? The Rays made a trade this weekend with the Oakland Athletics for Christian Bethancourt, who's a catcher. He's not a household name. He's not a guy that's going to jump off the page. He's not a guy that will likely make a big play in the playoffs. But they make a move. They realize, okay, we have Zunino. We need some depth behind him. And, okay, now we got Bethancourt who can catch for us and provides a decent bat. Oakland is a team selling. Cincinnati's going to be selling. Calling the Marlins. I mentioned that before. Are they selling? Is Pablo Lopez available? You're not going to get Sandy Alcantara, who's the best pitcher in baseball, if you ask me. But can you find something this week where maybe they don't pitch this week, but you have them when you come back from the All-Star game, they're there. They're ready to go. I believe the Blue Jays play the Red Sox immediately following the All-Star break a week from Friday. So have somebody in place to join your rotation and be ready to pitch. That's my approach. Your bats, okay, you got to rely on them. But can you play smarter baseball? Could you not hit into a double play so damn often? If I'm Rob Manfred, to see such little action, to see such little intrigue, it would truly disgust me. Because why would you want your sport this way? Numbers and launch angle have completely ruined the sport. Launch angle means absolutely nothing to me. Okay, you hit it. I don't give a shit where you hit it, how you hit it, did it go out? But also, if you got guys on second and third, 2 out, and you swing for the fact you're trying to hit the ball to Mars and you pop it up and it remains in the infield, you look like a horse's ass. You do, because you screwed up. Because you could have made a smarter play, yet you didn't. Too many teams do this. The Blue Jays are just one of them. This weekend, the Rays got swept by the Cincinnati Reds. This happens. I get it. And I'm not telling the Toronto Blue Jays fans to press the panic button. That's not what I'm saying. But should you be concerned? I would be. Because the Mariners are no joke. The Mariners are a good baseball team. The Red Sox are a good baseball team. And the Blue Jays and the Rays do not have a good history. The Blue Jays get crushed against the Rays. That's just what happens. To think you're going to pass the Rays, to me, is foolish. To think, because head-to-head, it's always the Tampa Bay Rays that play better against the Toronto Blue Jays. That's just normally how it works. Now, the unfortunate thing for the Red Sox, for the Rays, for the Blue Jays, you're not catching the Yankees. Yankees might stumble, but they got a 14-game lead on the Red Sox in mid-July. You're not going to fall from that. Now, the Yankees are starting to have their starting pitching trouble. They're the only team in baseball that have all 5 starting pitchers make at least 15-plus starts so far this season. You're starting to see some guys struggle. Nestor Cortez, Jamison, Tylon aren't having the season that they were early. And they're starting to show. They're starting to walk guys, give up lots of earned runs. Aroldis Chapman returned last night. He was a disaster in his one inning of work. He walked 2 batters. So they're going through some growing pains right now. Every team is. But the Mariners are a sleeping giant. To me, they're a very good team. They're a massive disappointment to start the year, because to me, they should be competing with the Astros for the division crown. They're never going to get there. They know they're battling for the wild card. To me, those 4 teams, you got Mariners, Blue Jays, Rays, Red Sox. They know where they stand. They know they're not catching their respective division winner. So you need to grind out the rest of the year and make it through the wild card. And thankfully for both leagues, you have a 3rd wild card slot now. You have a 3rd wild card slot where before, this would be a bigger deal if they're like last season, the Blue Jays missed the playoffs because there wasn't a 3rd slot. So you get that advantage this year. But you just think in this right now, we're July 11th, you're so thankful that there's a 3rd wild card spot. There wasn't last season. It's a new invention. So a team that was a World Series favorite is now hanging on to the fact that Major League Baseball wants more playoffs. They want more revenue. So they created this new slot that you are now benefiting from. That's why they're still in this as we stand. To me, anybody that poo-poos the fact that the Toronto Blue Jays are having a less than desirable season is really not thinking about it right now. You are the World Series favorites over the Los Angeles Dodgers, and you are barely above 500. To me, anybody that says this, that's, oh, it's no big deal, and we'll pump your brakes, you're thinking small-minded. Blue Jays fans are different because they're not, yes, a lot of them are Maple Leafs fans, but Maple Leafs fans are elitists. They think they're great. They think their team is super great. They're not. They're just in a big media market. They're like the Cowboys, where, yes, you get a lot of attention, but it's for reasons other than being relevant when it comes to winning. Blue Jays are a small market. Blue Jays are the only a Canadian team in the entire sport. So I think it's hard for some Blue Jays fans to grasp that, wow, your team is the favorite to win the World Series. And no, we weren't the favorites. You were. DraftKings, FanDuel, go on see all the betting apps. Go back to April, check them out. You were number one. It's the way it was. This is the Dodgers. They'd be getting killed. This is the Yankees. They'd be getting killed. You were in the same position. To this point, you've been a disappointment. This can all turn around. You got the team to do it. As I mentioned, I don't expect Baltimore to be there. They're 2 games out. It's a good story in mid-July. But do I expect them to be that? I don't. For the Blue Jays, you got 3 months left, basically. 3.5 months to figure this out, to play good baseball and be in a position to win the World Series. And you got to compete with the Red Sox, you got to compete with the Rays, and you got to compete with the Mariners. You only got to beat out one of those teams. Be better if you could win some games and you have home field. That would help. In particular, if you're playing the Red Sox, because as of right now, there's multiple Red Sox players that can't travel to Canada because of the COVID rules. So that benefits the Blue Jays. You get Tanner Houck in the bullpen, cannot pitch in Canada. He's not vaccinated. I'm not saying it's the right rules. I'm saying it's the rules. My mother and me were having a debate today about the rules at Wimbledon, how you need to wear white on every match there. And she said to me, rules were not meant to be broken. I've never heard that saying. It's not one I'm particularly fond of. I like breaking rules. I like breaking the agenda. I like going against the grain, if you will. So you'd like to be in a better position. You'd like to. You'd like to break the rules. But if you stay in your lane that you are right now, you're going to be a bubble team. I still got some stuff on baseball, but I want to talk about this too. This is all over the place today's show, but so she said to me today, rules are meant to be followed. Has anybody ever heard that before? Does it not sound like, well, number one, it sounds like a mother, which she is, so point to Heidi there. But does it also sound like a British dictator, or like sounds like 1984? If you ever read that book, like you're the thought police, like you're just, rules are meant to be followed. Do this. And we're having this debate. It's actually a sports debate. It's one thing I truly appreciate about my mother is that she follows sports and we can have these conversations, although we don't agree on much. But she loves Wimbledon because of the pageantry and because of Kate Middleton. Is it Middleton? Yeah, Kate Middleton. Yeah, whatever the hell her name is, Kate Middleton and William there, Baldy, and we chat. She loves them. She loves the royal family, and she follows the People magazine. And anyway, I won't go too far into this, but she thinks it's great that you have to wear white because it's a rule at Wimbledon. And Nick Kyrgios, who I personally love because he likes to break the rules, he likes to tell the establishment to fuck off, is going against that. And to me, wearing white, being forced to wear white just seems wrong to me. I don't know why you're forced to wear something. Again, it's not lost on me that you're forced to wear white in London, where, okay, you're forced to wear white. Most of the people there are white. And yeah, that I'm not calling them racist, but I'm calling them racist. So I love having these debates with her because I think I win 95% of them because my argument is better and my argument is against the patriarchy and things of that nature. And she'll listen to this and she'll be mad at me later. But rules are meant to be followed. I hate that. Just to debunk that theory, there's speed limits on the road. And I don't know about you listeners, I break that rule every day because I want to get there faster. And I'm not going 100 on the highway. And if you go 100 on the highway, I don't want to be behind you. And I know my mother doesn't go 100 on the highway. So are rules meant to be followed? Or are the rules that she likes and picks and chooses meant to be followed? Getting a lot of my family stuff today, but this is just stuff in my brain. Again, talking about sports, it leads me down this path. But do you like that saying? Rules are meant to be followed. Do you agree with that notion in life? I didn't agree with it when I was drinking beer at 14 years old. I didn't agree with it then. Legal drinking age 19. I didn't agree with it when I got a fake ID. And guess what? My life is a hell of a lot funner by not following the rules. I'll tell you that. My advice to the young people, if you're listening, fuck the rules. Break them. You'll be better off for it. Life experiences. You only live once. YOLO, you young kids. Following the rules is following a boring life. Do what you got to do. Enough of that, but I wanted to talk about that. Interesting. So don't panic if you're the Blue Jays, but panic a little bit. Giants and Padres split over the weekend. That was a interesting series to watch for me because they are so tight in the NL wild card. Just like the AL, you got the Cardinals in there. You have the Phillies, who have, since firing their manager Joe Girardi, they've caught fire. They've been without Bryce Harper, and they have the third best record in baseball since the firing. So they're playing extremely well. They're currently in the third wild card slot. They're a game up on the St. Louis Cardinals, who beat them yesterday on a walk-off yesterday. They play again tonight, a 4-game wraparound series. They played 8 times in the last 11 days. San Francisco is 2 back of St. Louis. San Diego is in the second wildcard slot, 2.5 up on Philly. So San Diego is in a good position. Again, they haven't had Fernando Tatis Jr. all year. They haven't had Manny Machado in 3 weeks, and their pitching's been a little inconsistent. So for me, I look at San Diego. They needed to right the ship. They had a good week. You split against San Fran, who are a good team. You swept the series before against the Rockies. This is the time of year where normally a team like San Diego craters. Where this is what happened to them last year. July and August were terrible months, and they lost it. Fernando Tatis Jr. was moved to the outfield because he was making too many errors at shortstop, and they never got it back. They never found it. But they need, in the next couple weeks, just right the ship, because I expect the Atlanta Braves to continue their run. They are now 5.5 games up on the St. Louis Cardinals. They're in a perfect position right now, the Atlanta Braves. They can't lose. They're winning every game. And at one point, the New York Mets had a massive lead in the AL East. The Mets were riding high. You had Pete Alonso, DeGrom. Scherzer wasn't pitching. It didn't matter because the Mets were the Mets. But now, the Mets still sit 20 games above 500. A fantastic ball club. Unless something crazy happens, they are going to make the playoffs, which for the Mets is a massive accomplishment. But don't look now. The Atlanta Braves, the defending World Series champions, they've gone through a lot this year. Didn't start the season with Ronald Acuna Jr. III. Lost Ozzie Albies to a broken thumb. Lost Freddie Freeman, who then cried about leaving Atlanta and then fired his agent with spiraled up drama. They've been through a lot, the Atlanta Braves. But they now sit a game and a half back of the New York Mets. At one point, they were 12 games back. They are riding high. They are finding success. And Austin Riley, one of the best third basemen in all of baseball, is a hitting machine. He picks up RBIs, and that batting average is rising every single day. The Braves are finally starting to come together. They're finally starting to get pitching. They're getting healthy, and they look like the team that won last year. They had their surge later in the year than last year, but tonight the Mets and the Braves start a 3-game series. A massive one. I mentioned it's only a game and a half that separates these two teams. They meet in Atlanta, and tonight you get to see two of the best pitchers in all of baseball do battle, with Max Scherzer on the mound for the Mets and Max Fried on the mound for the Atlanta Braves. This series is going to be really fun. Tonight's game is on TSN. I plan to watch it. You also got Red Sox Rays tonight on Sportsnet. So you got a 2-pack of MLB games that should be extremely competitive, extremely meaningful, because they can have a meaningful effect on the standings and where we go from here. So, but Mets Braves, when you see two pitchers like this, I've mentioned this before. There's certain teams that there's no business you watching them. For instance, I watch the Tigers every once in a while. No reason. I like watching their young core. And Miguel Cabrera still plays there. I still love Miggy. He's one of my favorite players. I'll tune in. Every 5th day, I find myself watching the Miami Marlins because I want to see Sandy Alcantara pitch. He is, to me, he's the best pitcher in baseball. He's right up there with, I think it'll be Sandy against Shane McClanahan, the 2 All-Star Game starting pitchers. So 2 teams from the Florida area, I think, will be starting the All-Star Game unless something crazy happens this week. And then I mentioned Shohei Ohtani. The only reason to watch the Angels, I don't watch them the other 4. Every 5th day when he's pitching, tune in, because he is must-see television. He's a unicorn. We'll never see anybody like Shohei again. What he's doing batting and pitching, he's incredible. So he is so dynamic. He is so interesting. When you get to see 2 great pitchers like Max Fried, like Max Scherzer go at it, you tune into the game. 2 teams that I expect to be in the postseason, that will be competing the rest of the season as in the same division. To me, this series will tell me more about the Mets. How are they feeling? They dishonored Keith Hernandez yesterday. They retired his number. It's a great day. Jerry Seinfeld sent in a tribute video. Obviously, it was an episode of Seinfeld back in the day. And Jerry Seinfeld is a true Mets fan in real life, not a Yankees fan like he was on the show. But the Mets have been in the pole position all season. They've been in the driver's seat. They've been the front runner. But now they're driving an old Chevy truck, and there's about 400,000 kilometers on it, and it's starting to wear down, right? And you're on the highway, and those are tough miles. And the Braves got a 2022 Camaro, and they're coming right on its heels. And they got the floor. But this Camaro, it's new, but it can get to the finish line because you've seen it do it before. They just test drove it. This old beater has been put away for a while. The Mets are, although they're the shiny new toy, they've never been played with that much. You think the toy is durable, but can you chuck it down the stairs and it survive? Is it like old-time wrestlers where you can beat the hell out of it forever and it'll still work 20 years later when you grab it? We don't know that about the Mets yet. We have to wait and see if they are what they say they are. You went out and got Francisco Lindor. You went out and you got Pete Alonso. You got DeGrom. You got Carrasco. You got a really good team. But you need to prove it against your best opponent, and that is the Atlanta Braves. Phillies are 7 back. They're still far back in the division race. The Braves are a game and a half. The Braves could be leading this division when the series is over, which is pretty crazy to think about after all we've seen in baseball so far this season. But it could happen. I'm interested in watching the games tonight. This is where baseball has to kill it on the calendar. There's, like I mentioned, there's no hockey, there's no basketball. After this week, there's going to be no news in hockey. Signings are pretty much done. Trades are limited after this point. And you have a couple weeks before NFL takes over, because training camp is more of a headline, is more interesting than Major League Baseball. I'm not saying to everybody, but primarily for most audiences, preseason NFL is more captivating than baseball. That's where they're at. Hopefully the All-Star game and hopefully the Home Run Derby does well. I'm not going to watch it, but hopefully it has good ratings. Hopefully people enjoy it. The Midsummer's Classic, or well, it used to be. Wimbledon. Wimbledon, the finals this weekend. I thought the women's final between Alina Rybakina and Ons Jabeur wasn't that entertaining. I wish it was. I watched the entire match. I bet on it and made some money, so I enjoyed that. But ultimately, watching the match, it didn't have a whole lot of flair. To me, I got the feeling in the middle of the first set that Rybakina was going to win the match because after she had lost her serve, she had really not had any trouble since. She started to find her groove. She started to limit her errors, and Jabber just couldn't find it. She lost her temperament. Her drop shot was not working anymore, and she lost her cool. Jabber wanted, sometimes in sports, you want it so much that it comes back to haunt you. That you want to hold on, you want to do all that you can to win, and it can slip through your fingers just like that. To me, that's where I see Jabber in this match. Rybakina, you saw her. She won her first major. It was as if she won a first-round match. She didn't fall to the ground. She didn't cry overly. She just went and sat down and was looking around like, what are we doing now? Are we going to leave? And it was almost puzzling to me that she was so laid back. I appreciated the fact that she was just like, well, it was almost as if she expected this to happen, which is good because, she had obviously had that confidence going into the match that she could beat Jabber. She clearly thought she could be a major champion, and now she is. And for Rybakina, she's 23 years old. This is her first major, which it's not old, but it's not young. It's good to get her on the board. I do think she has a lot of great characteristics to potentially win more majors. Number one, she's got a great serve. I think she's got a really predominant serve, in particular in the women's game, that can be trouble to a lot of different women. And that's something that can play to her favor. Another thing, I think her ground strokes are strong. To me, her biggest worry at this point is her movement. She's a tall woman. She doesn't move extremely well, but she did enough in this match for Jabber to try to go for the drop shot and for her to get there and hit winners. And at times, I think Jabber, like I said, got in her own head saying, she can make up the ground. What am I going to do? Am I going to try the drop shot? Am I not? And she made an error. Her shot wasn't great, and Rybakina would get the point. So for her, I give her so much credit for having a terrible first set where she came out and she was just hammering errors. Her forehand was loose. It was everywhere, and would have been very easy for her just to fall apart and lose the match in 2 sets and say, it was my first major final. I'm 23. I'll be back from this. I'll respond. You hear that every time after somebody loses, that they'll be back. They'll have another opportunity. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they'll come back and win. Sometimes you never hear from them again. She didn't have that option. She just said, you know what? I'll figure it out. She figured out the match. She figured out what her opponent wanted to do. And she ultimately cut down on her errors. She started playing much cleaner tennis. And I have to give her credit for that, for adapting and realizing what was in front of her. On the men's side, I mean, it's old blood. Novak Djokovic wins his 21st major title in a 4-set, really entertaining match with Nick Kyrgios. And he's now surpassed Roger Federer for most majors. He's now second to Nadal, solely in second place. And, I don't like Novak Djokovic. I really don't. I think the guy's a know-it-all. I think he thinks he's a lot smarter than what he is. But he's a great tennis player. And what you got to love about him, and in particular just the big three, they can lose a set. They can lose 2 sets. They don't panic. They never think they're out of a match. He lost 2 sets to Sinner. He lost the set to Cameron Norrie. He lost the first set to Nick Kyrgios. He won all 3 of those matches. That's quarterfinal, semifinal, final. Nick Kyrgios didn't play bad yesterday. I thought he played extremely well. He battled. He didn't quit. The tiebreak got away from him. But his serve was still pretty decent. And yet Djokovic was just too much. Djokovic will give a guy a set. He'll give you hope, and then he'll snatch it from you before you even know what's happened. So to me, it's just incredible what these guys do. They lose a set, they get behind, and it's like nothing has happened. There's no panic in their face. They're not worrying about what's to come. And for Djokovic, he's now won 7 Wimbledon championships. He's one behind Federer for the most ever. Federer's won 8 Wimbledon titles. To me, Djokovic, I see him playing at least another 2 years at this event. Wouldn't surprise me if he has more Wimbledon championships than Federer at the end of the day. To be honest, he's going to need to in order to have the most majors ever, because he's not going to be playing in Australia because he was deported. He can play at the French, but as long as Nadal is healthy, he will always be second fiddle. He will not come into any major at Roland Garros the favorite. And heading into the U.S. Open next month, as we currently sit, he is not eligible to play. He is not vaccinated. It's a New York rule that to be there to play tennis at the U.S. Open, you must be vaccinated. And he's not. It's his stance. He doesn't want to do it. So unless the rule changes or he changes his stance, he will not be playing in New York. Now, I'm extremely interested to see what New York does. They haven't made a change yet. I don't see them doing that. I don't know why they would. I don't see New York making a change for Novak Djokovic, with all due respect. Tennis is not a big enough sport for you to make a massive change like this. They did for basketball. That was in Brooklyn, where they made some. Kyrie Irving was able to play at the end of the day. And maybe it does change just based on life. To me, should Novak Djokovic play at the U.S. Open? Absolutely. COVID's behind us. Sure, he's not vaccinated. Yes, people are still getting COVID, but you get sick, you get over it, you move on with your fucking life. To me, as a tournament, I'm sure at the U.S. Open, and he's not in the greatest of graces there. As you remember, he was kicked out of a tournament there for hitting a ball woman. So it's not as if you're Roger Federer and you're trying to make an excuse for him, trying to get him in. It's a tough decision to me. Yes, he's a main attraction, and it's tough to say for a sport, but it's still the fact. Djokovic and Nadal are the 2 biggest draws behind the Wimbledon finalist, and that is Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios is the most entertaining. He's the most captivating. He's the most watchable star in all of tennis. And the fact that he's not for everybody makes him even more compelling. The fact that people hate that he goes against the establishment, that he goes against, well, tennis is supposed to be played with grace, and tennis is la da da la da. It's all about being a professional, and you got to be a good person. Okay, great. I'm all for people being good people and presenting the fact that they're better than everybody else because you're quiet at events and you dress up your stupid hats and whatever. Good for you. Good for you. You know, it's a sport that needs. I talk about baseball. Tennis needs a wake-up call. Tennis needs some change because, newsflash, nobody's watching it. These sports that stick to their traditions are not always a good thing. Traditions are not always positive. Just because you've done it for 100 years, well, that means you've done it for 100 years. Okay, great. Things change. There wasn't streaming services 100 years ago. The internet wasn't around 100 years ago. And people aren't consuming tennis. To me, there's a couple things tennis can do. Number 1, gambling. I gambled on the women's match on Sunday. I'm a fan. I would have watched the game anyway. But if you promote gambling in tennis, which they don't, it will draw people. Because at least, okay, I want to see wins. I might live bet a woman down a set, which somebody did this weekend. Somebody I know might have live bet Alina Rybakina down a set to Ons Jabber to win. Somebody might have made some money doing it. Maybe somebody made that bet. I don't know. I might know a guy. That is something you can draw people in with. It's And for tennis people, I'm sure this is just absurd. It's crazy. We can't be in bed with gambling. Every major sport had this opinion. We can't be in bed with the gambling people. Roger Goodell, the NFL had this opinion. They pivoted because they saw an opportunity to make more money, to get more viewership, which if you get more viewership, you make more money. Tennis can do the same thing. That's number one, gambling. Number two, promote your stars. And promote your stars whether they're buttoned up, whether they're kosher, whether they're whatever word you want to use, PC or not. Because in every sport, there are different cats. There's your beautiful people, and then there's the guy you look at, oh, I'm a little nervous about this. That's Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios, in all of tennis, he's the most marketable person they got. People are going to hate him. People do hate him. People are rooting for Novak Djokovic in the Wimbledon final over Nick Kyrgios. I was tracking on Twitter. They hate Nick Kyrgios. Good. Great. Hate Nick Kyrgios. If he can continue to win, continue to have success, that is exactly what you're hoping for. He is too polarizing for you not to market him. Marketing Nadal and marketing Djokovic is old. People know who they are. They know that they're going to win. Enough of that. It's like marketing Alabama football in college. It's the wrong way to go because guess what? We know Alabama. We know they're going to win. We know they're going to have one loss or no loss seasons. That's old news. Can you promote Texas A&M? Can you promote USC who's trying to come back with Lincoln Riley? Can you go and find other schools to promote to get you to watch these teams on a Saturday afternoon? You're like, why should I watch college football? Well, maybe do this. Nick Kyrgios, Tsitsipas, Rublev, Shapovalov, these next generation of players aren't the button-up Federer, Nadal, the great champions of the game. They're going to throw a F word in there. They're going to smash a racket. They're going to look at a fan and tell him to shut the hell up. And guess what? You should love it. Love it. Embrace it. This is not going to lead to fistfights. It's not going to lead to anarchy. What it's going to lead to is more interest in your sport. Yes, the mother, the wife, the child might love the button-up, the good version, the great guy who's really good looking, he's got a strong jawline, and he's got a beautiful wife and a couple kids sitting next to him. But let me tell you, the person my age, and I think more and more people growing up, see the guy with the perfect family and it does nothing for him. You see the guy who's a loose cannon, who's smashing his racket, that's something I can join in on. What did the NHL market their sport with for probably a couple decades? Violence, fighting, the goon. That was some of the biggest stars in the sport were guys that weren't great hockey players. Bob Probert is well known. Bob Probert, the late Bob Probert, is widely regarded as a mythical figure in the sport of hockey. It wasn't because he was scoring goals. It was because everybody was afraid of him. It's because he brought something different to the table. Tennis players have that. They need to do more to present them, to show them as elite talents, but also the next generation. Also, we're cool with this in tennis. We've had the shh, 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 shh. You can't talk when they're playing, which again is asinine in my opinion. You can yell at people playing hockey, but you can't shh, shh, shh. Gamble on the sport, promote it, have it in the buildings. Wimbledon never will because they're too good of people. Have a little casino in there. Have a little sports book where you can go play some bets before the matches. I realize the Brits might be a little more cultured than us over here in North America. But do I think they'll stop in every now and then to lay down a bet on a pony or the occasional tennis match at Wimbledon? Or maybe, just maybe, Wimbledon can look at soccer or football, as they say over there, across the pond, and see how much gambling money goes into that sport. See how popular that sport is over there. Or Formula One, for that matter, that surpassed tennis in ratings. Formula One yesterday morning had better ratings than the Wimbledon final. There's a fact for you. What do those two sports have? What do they do really well? Well, they market their athletes. Drive to Survive. Ever watch F1? Ever watch that show on Netflix? Really entertaining. You know Lewis Hamilton. You know the drivers because you watch Drive to Survive. They market them. They show them all. They show the guys you like, you shouldn't like, not just the guys you like. How about soccer? Widely popular, but it's also, you can gamble a lot in soccer. You can make money. You can have some side bets. You can have some fun watching the sport. Both are bigger across the pond. But hey, I'm just trying to help tennis. Stick to your guns. It's worked for you. Your ratings decline. People don't really care about the sport anymore. And are people going to care about the sport when Djokovic and Nadal are retired the way it's going? Who are they going to root for? Who are they going to cheer for? Who's the sell? Who's the guy you must watch? I don't know. Who's the woman that you need to watch in professional tennis right now? Think about it. Who is it? Who's the woman in tennis you need to watch? They tried to ride Naomi Osaka. That cratered. So who's now? I watch tennis all the day. I couldn't tell you. Is it Swiatek? Know nothing about her. Does she have a personality? Is it Rybakina? Probably not. Is it Halep? I don't know. But these are just examples of how the product is very good in tennis. It is. It's a very good product. It's a compelling product. It's entertaining. In the summer, you don't have that much to watch, but they could be doing better. And these are just a few areas where I think they can improve. Just a thought, but I think I'm right. Let's pivot to the National Hockey League. Some news and notes from over the weekend. Today is it's called QO Day, which is the qualifying offer, where teams around the NHL have the right to send a qualifying offer to the restricted free agent, where it depends on their last salary. You send a qualifying offer, and the player can accept the qualifying offer, or if he does not, the team and the player will head into arbitration, where they will try to, the player sends in a number that he wants to play under this season. The team sends in a number, and if it goes to arbitration, the arbitrator will meet on both sides, hear arguments from both the team and the player, and he will pick the salary of that player for the upcoming season. Normally, teams don't like to go to arbitration. You find a number in the middle, you sign the player, and both sides walk out happy because the player doesn't have to hear negative things about himself, and the team doesn't have to go through that awkward situation. But there's also times where there's restricted free agents, and the team looks at him and says, I don't want to sign this player to a qualifying offer. We'd rather this player go his separate ways. We don't want to pay him a salary this year. And that happened to a number of guys today. The biggest name being Dylan Strome of the Chicago Blackhawks, where the former number 3 overall pick of the Arizona Coyotes was not tendered a qualifying offer, making him an unrestricted free agent starting tomorrow. And Dylan Strome was a point-per-game player in the final 40 games of last season, alongside DeBrincat and Patrick Kane, so that's something to note. But he heads into unrestricted free agency, where he's looking to join a team that could compete for a Stanley Cup. And I don't think he's got a major market, Dylan Strome. Again, he was a point-per-game player playing with 2 great players alongside him. So if he's in a really good situation where he's not asked to carry a line, he can have some success. But again, I'm not breaking down the wall. I'm not going crazy in order to get Dylan Strome, but he is a player that's now available. Colorado decided not to tender a qualifying offer to Nicolas Aube-Kubel. He's drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers. He was traded to Colorado. I like the player. He is injury prone. He's more of a bottom six guy, likely on a fourth line, good checking role, can finish occasionally. He will not go back to Colorado, so they open up another roster spot for them. And, there's other players out there who've been tendered a qualifying offer that will, Jesse Puljujarvi in Edmonton was tendered one, although it's been reported that he'll likely be traded this offseason with the Oilers. Just don't see him as a fit. They believe they have their top six. They have other players that they want to try. Dylan Holloway barely played last season after getting injured, and I think he'll be on the Edmonton Oilers roster. They have money in free agency. Kyler Yamamoto was tendered one. I think he'll be back next season. So Puljujarvi might be tendered a qualifying offer, but to me, he'll be traded. Even if he does sign in Edmonton, he will be traded. I don't see him being an Edmonton Oiler come game one of next season. Svechnikov in Winnipeg was not tendered a qualifying offer. So some teams are deciding to move off players, decide to bring in new depth pieces, and move on from there. And for some players, it's just about getting through this period, getting through this one season, and getting to unrestricted free agency where you have the option to test it out. And if you want, head to a different team and find some success there. But the most news from over the weekend was really the Colorado Avalanche, because, as I mentioned, they did not qualify Aube-Kubel. But in bigger news, I mentioned on Friday's podcast that they traded for Alexander Georgiev, who was the backup goalie last season for the New York Rangers. He backed up Igor Shesterkin, and they traded for him. They announced that Darcy Kemper, they didn't have enough money to keep him, so he'll be leaving the team. And over the weekend, they re-signed Alexander Georgiev to a 3-year deal at just over $3 million. So Georgiev and Frank Kuz will likely be the tandem for Colorado next season. And I get Colorado's stance. They look at Kemper. I think they look at Darcy and say he's not a great goaltender, and he got us to a Stanley Cup final, and he's a Stanley Cup winning guy. I get that thought process, but at the same time, Georgiev is a backup. He has not had consistent success in this league. Frank Kuz is a backup goalie. He's nothing more than that. He's not a guy that's going to push you over the top. But to me, I think for Colorado, they look at this team and say, we don't need a superstar goalie to win. We have a superstar team, and they must think that Georgiev is close to Darcy Kemper in the skill range. They can try to pay less money for a goaltender and put better pieces around him so that Georgiev, in a full season as a starter, which he's never had in the NHL, can have some success and then head into the playoffs. The team can shut it down like they did this year, and perhaps they go from there. Colorado, I think, would have preferred to get Marc-Andre Fleury, but he decided to re-sign in Minnesota. There are some rumblings that Cam Talbot is a little upset that Marc-Andre Fleury came back and that it's going to be a tandem situation. I believe he wanted to be the full-time starter. So, I mean, Billy Guerin doesn't have to do anything there. Cam Talbot is under contract, but that's something to monitor because I think teams will be calling on Cam Talbot because he's a better option than Georgiev at this point, just based on what I've seen. Cam Talbot's been a more consistent, a better goaltender at the NHL level than Georgiev has been since they entered the league. So they get a goaltender, and then today they announced that Joe Sakic was promoted to president of hockey operations. So this is happening a lot in organizations now where they see an assistant general manager that they don't want to lose. They like him a lot, so they promote the GM to president. They did this in Vegas where they promoted George McPhee, and they brought in their man. His name's I'm losing his name right now, but Kelly. Forget his last name, but Kelly was promoted, and they did this in Vancouver with Rutherford, and they do this a lot with teams where they like the AGM. In Colorado, it's Chris McFarland. He used to work in Columbus, and he was getting talked to around the league, and they wanted to retain him. So good move by Colorado. You keep your management staff in tow, and they still have some work to do. For McFarland and for Sakic, They're working on a contract extension with Valeri Nikushkin. It's not done yet. Apparently, the years on the deal is holding them up. Nikushkin's is coming off a great postseason. He's 27 years old, and he's looking to get a payday for the first time in his career. So interesting to watch where that goes with Nikushkin. As I mentioned, Kemper's gone. They got Georgiev. They also got Josh Manson, who they traded for at the trade deadline, is an unrestricted free agent. I don't believe they're going to have enough money to bring him back. So they'll be looking to replace Manson on the back end. And this happens every year. When you're a great team and you're going to lose, when you win a Stanley Cup, you're going to lose great players that helped you win it. Tampa was just in the Cup final. They lost Ryan McDonough. They got back practically nothing for him. And Andre Palat's an unrestricted free agent, but it sounds like he's going to hit the market. And to me, this is such a huge loss for Tampa. He's been so important to them. He's got great chemistry with Stamkos. And I would think long and hard if I'm Palat before leaving the Tampa Bay Lightning, because that's the only team he's played for. Is actually the only coach he's played for has been John Cooper, because John Cooper was his head coach in the American League when they won a Calder Cup. So he'd be leaving Tampa, where the only place he's played, and leaving the only coach he's played for. So the grass is not always greener, but I will say I thought last week one of the biggest losers of the draft / early free agency was New Jersey Devils, where they didn't get Slavkovsky, which I thought they would at the second pick, and they didn't get Alex DeBrincat in a trade. For New Jersey, I believe they're so desperate and they're going to be pushing hard to sign Johnny Gaudreau, with him not re-upping with the Calgary Flames. They've been offering him 8 years, $9.5 million for a long time now, and it seems to just be at a standstill. He wants more money. If I'm Calgary, I'm not offering him a dime more. I wouldn't have offered him 9.5 to begin with. So for me, New Jersey is going to be desperate to get Gaudreau to be relevant, to add another piece at big money to show people that they're for real. To me, Andre Palat might be a better fit. Gaudreau's a better player, but if you get Palat at less years, he's an extremely valuable winger. He's been in winning situations. He'll bring a winning culture in New Jersey. To me, you missed out on DeBrincat. You didn't get Slavkovsky. Palat would be a really good prize, where you have a guy that's been in the postseason a ton. He can groom these young players and let another team sign Gaudreau to a contract that they're going to regret rather quickly, if you ask me. So I still think New Jersey is a team that's going to do something. And Ottawa beat them to it on the DeBrincat trade, and Ottawa basically had to give up nothing for DeBrincat, so it's an excellent trade for them. For New Jersey, you're just going to have to give up money. Palat is a UFA. To me, convincing in the county New Jersey is one thing. You'll have to do that with cash. And yes, Gaudreau is going to want a lot of cash, but it's not going to be the same. It's going to be at least $3 to $4 million less. And to me, Palat brings a lot of value. He won't have as many points. He's not as good of a player, but he brings value off the ice and even on the ice with the experience he's had. And you bring a winner into that environment in New Jersey where they haven't had any winning. They haven't had any success lately. It's a culture of failure. And to bring a new vibe and some winning into that organization, I think can only be a positive thing. So that's something for me I look at New Jersey to do. Chicago today bought out Brett Connolly. They continue just to get rid of money. And, I saw that Larry Brooks of the New York Post, who has been covering the Rangers for a long time, he's heard that they're looking to reacquire JT Miller. That could be something the Rangers do with the Vancouver Canucks. But he threw out this theory that to him, the best move is not to get JT Miller, but it's to call the Chicago Blackhawks on a man named Patrick Kane. Chicago could retain half his salary, and you send a boatload to Chicago in return. And boy, does this sound rich, because this was my idea 3 months ago. This is the move. Patrick Kane needs to waive. I don't see why he wouldn't waive to New York. Make this deal happen. Chicago can retain half that salary. They don't care. They're tanking. They want to be the worst team. They want to get Bedard this time next year. So to me, it's quite simple. Just get rid of these contracts. Get rid of these contracts. Do what you got. Eat half of it with Taves. Eat it with Kane. Yes, you'll have dead money on your books, but it'll be worth it in the long run to really start. You're going to be decent with Patrick Kane. Will you into being a competitive team. If he's not in the roster, he can't be. So Larry Brooks throwing this out, maybe nothing happens. But to me, when there's smoke, there's fire. I think Patrick Kane will be a New York Ranger very soon. I just see this happening. It makes too much sense for New York, for Patrick Kane to go on a team that was in the conference finals last year, was extremely close to winning a Stanley Cup. He can be the difference maker that pushes them over the edge. He can be the guy that is the anti-Artemi Panarin, where Panarin is the same size as Kane but doesn't have the balls to go in the corner. We've seen it time and time again that Patrick Kane is willing to do whatever it takes to win a Stanley Cup. So Chicago continues to offload Kirby Dach. They're buying out Brett Connolly. They traded to Brinkat. They're making moves every other day to get worse. They need to look at the two best pieces and do the same right away. Also over the weekend, Adrian Kempe re-signed a 4-year, $22 million contract with the Los Angeles Kings. He had a breakout year last year, and the Kings are another interesting team where they've gotten a lot better. They got a stable tandem with Jonathan Quick and Calvin Peterson in LA. I like that team. They need some younger kids to continue to develop with the likes of Quentin Byfield. I mentioned Mikey Anderson as a piece that I really like on the back end. Gabe Velarde still has some room to grow and see if he can become an NHL player. He's been there a number of years, but he's still kicking around that organization. So for LA, it's just continue to develop players. Kempe is a very good player, and he's a guy that's going to be, I think, a leader of the years to come. Where Kopitar is still there, but he's not what he used to be. Doughty is still there, not what he used to be. Quick is on the last year of his deal. Could be his last year in the National Hockey League, if we're being honest right now. So with Kempe locking him up, he's a center iceman that I believe is a leader of the team that sets a tone, and he's going to demand respect. He's going to demand having great seasons, and you need to put good players around him so this team can compete sooner rather than later. So I'm interested to see what Kempe can bring. He had a great year last year. I'd expect him to be a point per game again, to be relevant, to be solid, just to play well. That's what I expect from Adrian Kempe, to be around, to score 30 to 35 goals and lead this team into the postseason again. Because LA has a lot of good pieces. I think they got a good coach in Todd McClellan. Rod Blake has done a really good job at stabilizing the management core and making this team competitive in a quicker time frame than I thought, much quicker time frame than their rival, the Anaheim Ducks. So we'll see what comes of this, but I like the Kempe re-signing. And then on Saturday, a big ticket free agent, another big winger came off the board where Philip Forsberg ended up re-signing with the Nashville Predators on an 8-year, $8.5 million deal. So a big ticket for Forsberg to remain in Nashville. Reportedly, he'd been offered 8 times 8. He turned it down and needed that extra $500,000 per year to return to Nashville. And so he was traded there from Washington. He's had success, a 40-goal season last year. This is Nashville keeping one of their own guys. They just traded for Ryan McDonough. I believe they still think they're a competitive team. They got a good goalie in UC Saros. But would I have signed Philip Forsberg to an 8-year contract? No. Philip Forsberg is not a franchise player. Philip Forsberg could never be the best player on a Stanley Cup winning team. To me, he can't be the second best player on a Stanley Cup winning team. He's a good player that needs another great player to facilitate offense for him. He's not a guy that normally sets up his own goals. He gets a good pass. He gets a great pass and he can score off the rush. But he is a little one-dimensional in the way he plays the game. He's not always focused. So Philip Forsberg has a lot of good qualities. He's got a great shot. He's a great offensive player. But I look at Nashville. They did make the playoffs last year. They squeaked in. They don't have a whole lot of cash. Again, they get McDonough. You still got Yossi Ekholm. They get a strong back end and a strong goaltender. But up front, Johansson had his best year since Columbus. Can you expect that again? Forsberg had a career year on his contract year, so that always concerns you. Is he going to be able to back that up? So Nashville's in a weird spot where I still think they need to try to compete because they They have a goaltender. They have the back end. You can't sell off pieces now. And they got a general manager and president who is, in his mid-70s. He's not starting a rebuild. He's not saying let's move on, because he believes they're close to competing. They can win here soon enough. So I don't mind Forsberg coming back. I would not have brought him back on an 8-year term. I think they will regret that. But to me, this is the management in Nashville saying somebody else's problem. That's normally how they approach this now. That's normally how these management teams, they don't worry about, well, how is this going to look in 7-8 years? Because it's so one-dimensional. It's, well, that's going to be another guy's problem. He'll have to trade away this contract. Where Sakic's been there a long time in Colorado. And the Tampa organization, Brisebois been there forever. John Cooper's been employed there forever. They don't normally do business that way. They think, well, this guy's going to be really good. They don't worry about they don't think about the contracts in the long term. So it's interesting to see Nashville do it. And do I think this will age well? I don't, because I don't have faith that he's going to be a great player in all those years. And I even think some of those years in his prime, he might be a little underwhelming for the $8.5 million that you're going to have to pay him. He's a good player. He's not a great player. Signing a guy to an 8-year contract should be a franchise player. Should be a given. It should just be, well, he's your best player on your team. It's the max you can sign a player to. That should be something that, it's like giving somebody a no move or a no trade clause. Those shouldn't just be thrown out. They shouldn't just be given to anyone. Matt Murray has a no trade, no move. Why does Matt Murray have a no trade, no move? He's not earned that, and he blocked a trade to Buffalo for Ottawa, and now he's still there right now. You could have had him off your roster already before the draft, but he said, no, I don't want to go to Buffalo, which that's rich that he has an opinion on where he wants to go, and half the time he's not even eligible to get to play the games because he's so weak-minded. But then there's another rumor. Apparently, the Toronto Maple Leafs and Ottawa Senators are finalizing a trade for Matt Murray. Yet the one thing holding it up right now is the Leafs are doing a thorough investigation into Matt Murray's medical reports, into his injury history, and how he's progressing this offseason. First things first, if you're doing a trade on somebody and you have to do a thorough investigation into their health, and you have to really look under every rock to see, okay, is something wrong with him? Does this hurt? Does this hurt? Bueller. That is a mistake. You have to look into his injury reports. You have to ask people, what do you think of his character? Hello. Matt Murray won some cups in Pittsburgh. That was a long time ago. Since then, he's done nothing of even a little bit memorable in Ottawa. He's been a disappointment. He's been unavailable in games. He's gone up for warm-ups, said, I just can't go tonight. That's Matt Murray for you. That's Matt Murray. That's just who he's been over the course of his career. It's shameful. And to me, Toronto is so desperate for a goaltender, and they're settling on Matt Murray primarily because he played in Sault Ste. Marie, where Kyle Dubas knows everybody from Sault Ste. Marie. If you play for Sault Ste. Marie, Kyle Dubas will give you 9th, 10th, 8th chances because, hey, you went to the Sioux. I get it. There's no goalies available. It's a tough market. You don't want to overpay. But how much is Ottawa can only retain 50% of Matt Murray's salary. He makes over $6 million a year. So you're still paying that money, and you're likely not going to be able to sign a veteran backup. So then you have Shalgren behind Matt Murray or Joseph Wall. And Matt Murray gets hurt every season. So that means at one point, Shalgren and Wall are going to be your two goalies in your system. You going to feel good about that? I don't know how you could. That you feel solid, you feel comfortable, you feel confident that those two bozos are leading your team. It's a puzzling thing for the Maple Leafs to just say, okay, Matt Murray is the guy we're going to put all our hope in. To me, it's fool's gold. To me, it's stupidity. I don't understand it. Desperate teams do desperate things. But if I'm Kyle Dubas, and I know, and if he doesn't know this, I'll tell him right now, you lose in the first round again next summer, you're fired. Sheldon Keefe's going to be fired, you're fired, and Brendan Shanahan sure as hell better be fired. So it's not going to matter. Would you rather lay your hopes on a Matt Murray or a John Gibson? You might have to trade William Nylander to get a John Gibson, but I would do it. Anaheim will make that deal. I think if push comes to shove, they will trade John Gibson. Sure, you have to give up some. You have to give up Nylander plus, but he's better than Matt Murray. I'd rather go down swinging than get a utility player to play goaltending for me. And a utility player that's hurt every second game. Go down swinging rather than just limp out with Matt Murray. My God. The fact it tells you the goalie market in the NHL right now, like teams are clamoring for Matt Murray. They're really looking at him saying, let's take Matt Murray on our team. That is just a scary thought that multiple teams have interest in this guy. God help them. And finally, Evander Kane. Over the weekend, and really today, it was reported that the Edmonton Oilers offered Evander Kane a 4-year, $16 million contract extension, meaning he would make $4 million a year on a 4-year deal. And Evander Kane and his representatives declined this contract, and it looks like they're at an impasse, and Evander might end up signing with another team. And he'll be able to talk to other teams. He might not re-sign in Edmonton. I want to talk about another puzzling story. Evander Kane is uber talented. I love the way he plays with his power forward game and just his brute force and everything he brings to the table. I love it. But then you also look at Evander Kane and you see the history, the gambling, the bad teammate, the reports with his wife, the divorce, all that drama. There's been multiple teams that have defined Evander Kane as a bad teammate. That there's one thing to say you've been through tough times in life, but when your teammates are turning against you, that tells you something. That this guy's just probably just not a really good dude. They are saying he's crap. They're saying they don't want him on the team. In Edmonton, it worked. He played with McDavid. He had 2 hat tricks in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He had 11 goals in the playoffs. But he had a really good postseason run after having multiple years of just disasters in San Jose, where what could go wrong did go wrong. So I'm going to be quite blunt here. The fact that Evander Kane is turning down a 4-year contract and 4 years of security is baffling to me. There's no way I would sign him to a 4-year contract because Evander Kane needs to be motivated to play. He needs to earn his money, earn his next deal. Because you give a guy like Evander Kane, you give a guy like Patrick Laine for different reasons because he's just not motivated, reasons to get comfortable, they will. They will get fat and happy over the fact that they have money sitting there waiting for them, whether they score 60 goals or they score 6 goals. That is a dangerous position to be in. Evander Kane, you give him that security, something bad will happen. Something will happen with Evander. He'll get arrested. Something will happen. It's bad to say, but that's been his track record so far. If somebody is willing to give him 5 years on the open market, which I think some team will just out of desperation, might be Philly. That is crazy to me. The fact that he's done everything to prove that he's not trustworthy. But the fact that he's turning down a 4-year deal in Edmonton tells me that his agent believes he can get more on the open market. His agents could be wrong. Agents have been wrong in the past. But to me, it's truly shocking that a guy that's done so much to hurt his reputation, so much to hurt teams, hurt everything you can imagine to hurt you in the business, is thinking he can get a 4 to 5 year term elsewhere and obviously get more than $4 million a year. It's baffling to me. Again, I'm going to reiterate, I love the player. I love his power forward game. I love his nastiness. He's a throwback. You don't see many Evander Kanes. Tom Wilson might have a history of suspensions, but no teammate hates him. Everybody loves Tom Wilson on Washington. They take him on their team any day of the week. I've never heard that about Evander Kane. Never heard it. Most people say he's a pretty shitty guy. Dustin Byfuglien wanted to kill Evander Kane when he was on Winnipeg. To me, I'm interested to see what he gets on the open market because I find it incredibly puzzling that he is turning down this offer after all that he's done to prove to the league that he can't be trusted. To prove to the league that, you know what? I'm going to screw this up again. So why don't you give me more money so I can prove to you that I will screw it up? It's crazy. It's crazy. Free agency is on Wednesday. Seamus is going to join me on Wednesday for the free agency show. It's easy for me to say. And we'll talk about all things NHL. All the deals that come through. Where does Johnny Gaudreau go? Where do all these players go? That's going to be Wednesday's show. Reacting to free agency. Who's the winner and loser, although it means nothing because it's free agency and we don't know yet. But we'll talk about all those different headlines, all those different details on Wednesday. And there's also rumors in the NBA that DeAndre Ayton is going to get traded to the Pacers. I believe I had that back in the day, back a couple weeks ago. So I'd be happy to see that come through. Would be interesting if DeAndre Ayton gets traded to the Pacers. I can't see a trade coming through for Kevin Durant to the Suns because they're not going to have enough to give back to the Brooklyn Nets. So I'm not worried about my Kevin Durant take saying that he's going to be a Brooklyn Net come Labor Day. I still believe that. Apparently, there was a report today that Brian Windhorst said they're trying to get a deal done with Durant before they worry about Kyrie. Those trade talks are dead between him and the Lakers. I'm still not convinced that Kevin Durant is traded out of Brooklyn because I just don't think there's a deal available unless the Raptors step up and do something. I don't see an easy trade for the Brooklyn Nets to get rid of Kevin Durant. So that's really all we have for today. We got the PGA, we got the British Open this week. Tiger Woods played a practice round yesterday. It looks like he's going to play at St. Andrews. So big news there. We'll touch on other stuff tomorrow. CFL, we'll talk about baseball again and begin to preview the PGA Championship and other news and notes around the NHL when it comes to free agency. If you have any predictions, let me know. Let me know in the comments about if you see any players going anywhere, any big moves on the horizon, any moves for your team that you root for that you want to see happen, you don't want to see happen. Let us know in the comment section and join in the conversation. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show today. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Great start to the new week. We'll be back tomorrow. This is To The Point.